What do you think about the variables, though, on opening night between the Bills and the Rams? Because cornerback Tre'Davious White, they're a Pro Bowl caliber guy there for Buffalo in that secondary. Coming off the ACL injury, suffered that on Thanksgiving night. He might not be ready, but there sounds like he's been pretty good in the rehab process so far. But it's showing that regardless of White there or not, a pretty healthy respect for this Buffalo team, only catching 1 point against the defending champs on the road.
Well, I mean, look, you know, it's always hard to defend your title. We know that. And Buffalo is a zone team defensively. They're going to play a lot of cover two, you know, and so even if they have White or they don't have White, it's really not going to – they're not going to get engaged into a man-to-man game. Mm-hmm. You know, to me, I think this is – plus they drafted the kid Elam to be in the first round to kind of replace him to get him going.
Yeah.
And then and so they've got some solutions to this. A lot of this is going to come down to me, is Buffalo's pass rush. Are they right about Von Miller? Can they rush the passer? And then it relates to the Rams, are the Rams right about Noteboom? I thought he played way better last year when he had to fill in for Whitworth, and he was. Are we right about the Rams' offensive line? Are they still going to be as effective as they were last year? Can they hold up? Can Stafford hold up? And do they have enough depth? I think the one thing we know about the Rams in opening day is McVay's done a really good job of getting his team to the first game.
Yeah.
To the first game without really putting much stress on them in the summer. It's really been remarkable, you know. And so, you know, they'll have one young player, the third round pick, Bruss, the kid that they drafted in the offensive line, but pretty much they get their team back. Plus they get Troy Hill back, their nickel corner, who they love.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, this Rams team. They've been the healthiest team over the last 3 years now, I believe it is. Everyone's trying to figure out what they're doing to stay healthy. McVay could probably sell a book on what they're doing to stay healthy.
Seriously, I keep counting on it. They have no depth, and yet they never rely on the
Never
depth.
hurts them.
They never need to. And they do. I mean, they lost Cam Akers last year. I get that. And they lost some, you know, Henderson at times. And, you know, they've had some injuries. I mean, look, Whitworth was out, and they've been able to adjust for it. But to me, you know, they've been able to get away with it remarkably, and your hat's off to them.
What's it like, though, opening night? Because you've been there in the New England organization where there have been plenty of opening nights where they're the defending Super Bowl champions. What's that like with the target squarely on your back and incoming to town is the Super Bowl favorite by all sports books indications and a team that is hoping to be where you were a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always going to be a target on the Rams every week. The Rams are playing a Super Bowl 17 times. You know, it's everybody's Super Bowl when you go play the Rams, so you got to step up. The Rams' challenge is how we're going to solve the Josh Allen riddle. I mean, that's going to be the problem for everybody. The way he played down the stretch in the last month, after the New England win game, after that, when they made him a single wing quarterback, when he really ran the ball more effectively, and they got going, they're going to be a hard out. They're going to be a hard out, and how good are the Rams going to be, you know, in terms of handling that? So the Rams have their work cut out for them. And they don't really have, I would not say, you tell me. I mean, do they have a home field?
Hell no.
You know, there's going to be that place is going to be loaded with Bills fans.
Yeah. Bills Mafia is going to get that extended summer vacation going to Southern California there. They will be heavy in that stadium at SoFi. I wanted to ask you about Sunday Night Football because my beloved Dallas Cowboys hosting the GOAT, Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Week 1 Sunday night. I mean, it's the biggest name in a quarterback and player in the NFL right now against the biggest brand on the biggest stage at Jerry World on Sunday night. What do you make of this one? Tampa right now at DraftKings, 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, and Todd Bowles' debut as the head coach, so we'll see what happens. We'll see him in a different role, assuming he's still going to call the defense, which he says he is. So it'll be good. And, you know, the Bucs have been able to kind of put together their team back together, you know, and I think that's going to be critical for them. You know, when you go through the Bucs, I think the one guy that Brady really needs, and I think down the stretch it affected him more than anybody, is – you know, when he's comfortable at the receiver position, you know, and he gets the guys that he feels most comfortable with, and Godwin's that guy.
Yep.
And so he needs Godwin. And if he has Godwin back, then I think, and we don't know whether he's back from the ACL or not, then that's really going to really determine what happens and how Dan Quinn adjusts what he was doing defensively. A little of it people got used to it. So what has he done to counter that? I think that's going to be the chess game within the chess game. And then ultimately, are the Bucs good enough up front? You know, we talked about the Bucs. You know, they don't have Sue back. They don't have Jason Pierre-Paul back. I mean, Vita Vea we know is a load, but are they going to be good enough up front to really put some pressure on the quarterback that they're going to have to do to create Prescott to be in problems? I think that's going to be a fun matchup. And look, playing at home, it certainly benefits you for the Cowboys. This will be a great opportunity to see how good the Cowboys really are.
Yeah, no, both teams dealing with wide receiver injuries. Godwin for the Bucks, Michael Gallup, he tore his ACL in early January, so he's unlikely to be playing in this game, so we'll see how those offenses adjust. Monday Night Football, also near and dear to my heart there as a Pacific Northwest guy. Russell Wilson, gone after a decade in Seattle, now with the Denver Broncos. So the schedule makers, they put their hands together, they rubbed them and said, how do we kick off Monday Night Football? We're going to send Russ back to his old stomping grounds to the Pacific Northwest, where the Broncos are 4-point favorites Monday night against the Seahawks.
Imagine that. The Broncos are 4-point favorites in a stadium that used to be really hard to play in. Yeah. That wasn't last year. Teams went in there and played. And if anybody knows Russell and what he likes and what he doesn't like, obviously it's going to be Seattle. And Seattle has revamped their offensive line, so we'll see where that leads them to. Denver, we think, is always a good team. Whether they play good or not, we shall see. And how Russell cooks. I think it's fun to watch. I don't think Seattle is going to be as bad as people suspect they are.
Really?
They've got to be better. They have to be better. The problem is they don't have a quarterback, and so that's the issue is can you run the football and win in the league with Penny and Walker and Case and Carson? I don't know. That's a hard one. But I think defensively they have to be better. They were so bad defensively last year. It can't get any worse.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I see the upside for Seattle to be that much better. Losing Bobby Wagner, DJ Reed on the back end as well there. That defense, it's a little shaky. They made some improvements to the defensive line, but I'm still worried about the back seven. Real quick, though, if I had to ask you for quarterback for the Seahawks, who will be behind center for Seattle? Geno Smith, Drew Lock, or mystery quarterback?
I think it's going to be Drew Lock. I don't think there's any chance. The one thing I think the schedule told us is I wrote about this. Howard Katz must know something. To play Carolina and hosting the Brownies in the first game, to me, this and so far there's been no indication whatsoever from John Snyder or Pete Carroll in Seattle to want to take on a quarterback. Now, will that change? Maybe, but if it's going to change, it's got to happen now. There's two guys out there available. There's Jimmy Garoppolo, and then there's Baker, and I think Baker ends up going to the Panthers at some point. The Panthers have an interest. I think the best, if I were Baker Mayfield's agent, I would be demanding the Browns give him to the Panthers because it's the one place where he could go, he could compete for a starting job, and if he plays once he makes them better, he'll get the credit for making them better.
Yeah, no, I think it's really fascinating stuff here. The schedule makers have a sense of humor from what we can tell with the Seahawks going to the Broncos. You get the Washington Commanders and Carson Wentz hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, the team that probably sent him packing to our nation's capital. And oh, by the way, they happen to be coached by his former coach in Philadelphia, Doug Peterson, who he didn't really get along with, as we learned at the end of their run.
Who's he gotten along with? He doesn't get along with anybody. Like let's put together a group of people he gets along with. That's going to be a short list.
His
that
wife.
Dinner party ain't going to cost you very much. God and his wife. And you can't get God. He's too busy.
It's Carson Wentz. It's almost like it's a revenge game every single week for him against any team in the league because nobody appears to like this cat. Now, I'm sure nobody in Indianapolis is going to disparage him other than the owner, Jim Irsay. But and Frank Reich has been on record saying that Wentz is like a brother to him, but they just had to make those changes. But the fact that Wentz has to play the Jaguars later on in the schedule, the Commanders, they go to Indianapolis. They also then go to Philadelphia because of the NFC East rivalry. He's going to be going on these reunion trips all along the season here.
Yeah. It's like Rickles used to say about Sinatra. He used to say, Sinatra's got Sicilian Alzheimer's. And people say, well, what's Sicilian Alzheimer's? It's you only remember the grudges. Well, that's all he has is grudges. Seriously. You only remember the grudges. That's all he has is the grudges. Wentz is at war with everybody. Who defends him?
Nobody, from what we've learned here.
At what game do you want to make a bet? You and I bet that Wentz is, that they've had enough of Wentz.
Oh gosh, I'd have to look at the schedule here.
I think that's something that I'm going to do this right this second while we're here doing this. I'm going to go look at this schedule because I'm going to make a prediction. At what point does Scott Turner and Ron Rivera throw him overboard to save their season and save their careers. Like, seriously, what point?
To me, the early indication just from looking at the schedule is right before the bye week there. They play the Giants week 13 in the Meadowlands. If things don't go well, they have the bye week to maybe then go back to Taylor Heineke to probably save their season, sneak into the wild card. That would be the early favorite for me, just because I think they'll let him play at Philadelphia. I don't think they'll bench him before then. That game is week 10 at the Eagles.
I think week 3, week 4, week 5 is a tough road. Philly, Dallas, Tennessee, right? And then Chicago, who knows? And then you got Green Bay. But here's what I would say. The NFC East is fascinating, and I think Philly's a really good candidate to bet the over number.
Oh, yeah.
Because the NFC East plays the AFC South and the NFC North. I mean, that's a really good combination that could – so Washington could be a potential – if I thought they were better at quarterback, I think they would be an over team only because their number's going to be low. However, you got a chance to because of who you're playing, you got a chance to add. But then when you look at their team, and they've made no changes to their defensive staff, their offense was a disaster. The defense was worse, one of the worst teams on third down, gave up all these yards and points. And like people are walking around like, how are they going to be any better?
Thanks for watching the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi. And for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to VSiN Live and the GM Shuffle podcast with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN, wherever you get your podcasts.